Hello
everyone. Good morning to those who are joining us from Canada and good evening to all my friends here in India. Welcome to the ICDC webinar on aerospace and defense opportunities both for India and Canada. The aerospace industry in India is entering a new phase with self-reliance in manufacturing, both in aerospace and defense sector. The government has also recently announced FDI increase in FDI for for foreign investments. So we are hoping that this is going to open out even more opportunities in this sector, both aerospace and MRO. We have got fabulous experts here with me today, and I'm delighted to welcome them to this session. And they will be telling you a lot more in these sectors. But before I just hand it over to our moderator, I just want to say that the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber has been very active in the aerospace sector, and we've had an aerospace committee based out of Bangalore and driven by Ms. Pallavi Saxena, who is the director for the Bangalore Regional Council. And we even released a white paper in 2017 on defense and aerospace. So this is something that we are very happy to talk about and to host this session where we can have a very productive discussion and definitely, outline action steps for the next, for the coming time. So let me first start by welcoming our chief guest, Vandana Agarwal ji, who is a senior economic advisor in the government of aerospace, in the Ministry of Aerospace, Government of India. Welcome, Vandana ji, to us. Thank you for joining us. We also have Mr. Vinay Gupta, who is the Trade Commissioner in the Canadian High Commission in charge of aerospace, defense, and security. Vinay, the kind of experience and background that you have on aerospace, very few would be able to compete with that, and really looking forward to your inputs today. Ashwini Acharya, who is with CAE, Mr. Nirmal Kumar Chandramouli, who is here from Pratt & Whitney, Canada, and Udyan Malhotra, better known as Toby, from Kinematics. And last but not least, Pulak Sen, who is the founder, Secretary General of the MRO Association of India. He has been in the profession of aviation journalism for the last 4 decades, covering civil, military, industry, tourism, and has been a part of Skilling India through Aerospace Aviation Sector Skill Council in the area of MRO and other sectors. The reason why I've given a longer introduction of Pulak is because he's a moderator and he's going to be giving a lengthy introduction of all our other panelists, but there's nobody to introduce him. So I thought, let me devote a little time to give him a proper introduction. So over to you, Pulak, and all the best to all of you for a very, very interesting session ahead of us.
Thank you, Pallavi, for introducing me and the other panelists.
By the way, I'm Nadira, so you can start.
Sorry, Nadira. Thank you very much for introducing all of us. Madam, I must thank you for taking your time out from hospital duty to be with us today. My thanks goes out to all the participants and the panelists. I would like to give a short introduction to our Canadian aerospace companies on the Indian aerospace. Civil aviation sector in India is growing was growing before the pandemic. It was recorded annual growth of over 41% of passenger traffic during the last 2 years. In fact, it has contributed significantly to the growth of international civil aviation sector. The rapid growth of civil aviation has put extreme pressure on the existing civil aviation infrastructure. As a result, the thrust is now to modernization of airports, communication, navigation, and surveillance system for air traffic management, radars, and facilities for MRO of aircraft and subsystems. thus creating an enormous potential and huge opportunity for collaboration and creation of joint ventures in the aerospace sector in India for establishing MRO facilities and for civil and military aircraft, overall and maintenance of aero engines and production of uh, avionics, components, accessories, both for civil and military use. India has caught the attention of major aerospace manufacturers with low production cost and government strong focus on building manufacturing sector under Make in India initiative of the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, is getting more impetus. The government of India has been steadily creating an enabling ecosystem of policies and regulations to give the much needed fillip to the Indian aerospace industry. Hence, in this meeting, in this new normal situation, it is significant to explore the opportunities of collaboration between Canada, Canadian aerospace industry and Indian aerospace industry, both for aerospace and MRO opportunities. We are happy to have Ms. Vandana Agarwal, Senior Economic Advisor to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, as our chief guest. And so we are also happy to have our panelists. Uh, we have a balanced, well-balanced mix of manufacturer of aerostructures, engine manufacturers, and the aviation training uh, imparting organization. We now we know that the audience want to bring this platform, bring us to want us to bring to this platform other areas of expertise. Please don't worry. We will bring such experts in our next meetings sometime next month or so. We are trying to establish this platform under the aegis of ICBC as a regular monthly feature. Now I take the opportunity of inviting our first panelist, Mr. Vinay Gupta. Let me introduce you to Mr. Vinay Gupta. Uh, Most of you know him, but it is my duty to give this brief introduction. Vinay Gupta is the Trade Commissioner at the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi. Vinay helps drive trade and investment for Canada by providing market insights and connecting market makers with the objective of enhancing growth opportunities for all stakeholders. He is an industry expert in aerospace, defense, and security. He is versatile and client-centric international business development officer with more than 35 years of experience. 20 years I know him uh, in defining trade promotion and investment goals, implementing and managing deliverables, and building strategic alliance with both public and private sector, who delivers high quality result on challenging business development, trade, and strategic partnering projects, local or international in scope. I now invite Vinay to share the scope of collaboration between India and Canada. Over to you, Vinay.
Well, thank you, Pulak, for a very long introduction. And thank you, Nadira, ICBC, for providing this opportunity to share some information about the Canadian aerospace industry. And I think we always need to share more and more information with more and more people so that people can get an idea about where do we stand in terms of the aerospace sector for Canada. So I will just share not too much of information, but some basic information which put this this webinar in the right context as to what Canada has to offer and what India has in mind and where we can find the matching points. So Canada, as most of us know, more for Niagara Falls, Tim Hortons, or Justin Bieber, right? But we do have the 5th largest aerospace industry in the world that we need to understand. And we are ranked #1 on civil flight simulators, and we are ranked #1 also for the turboprop and helicopter engines. We are ranked #2 for business jets and #3 for regional aircrafts. So that gives you quite an understanding where the Canadian aerospace industry stands. The industry in Canada contributes about $25 billion to the economy for the GDP in Canada. And out of this, almost 20% is spent on research and development. So it gives you an idea about how R&D is an integral factor for the Canadian aerospace industry. Now, our industry association, Aerospace Industries Association of Canada, as per them, there are 700 plus firms in Canada spanning across all of Canada. And we have almost 93% of these firms, aerospace manufacturing firms, that are exporters. And we export about 80% of our output. So, and some of the output that we do in terms of the airframe, beyond the airframe manufacturers, it would include products and components for the supply chain, and like critical components for engines, landing gears, avionics. And we are also home to the smaller companies which use the high technology and high value components to build some of the most advanced aircrafts in the world. Now, our firms are globally competitive. And one of the reasons is that we use state-of-the-art technology. And Canada has not been lagged behind in terms of using the latest disruptive technologies, which would include the IoT, artificial intelligence, geomatics, geospatial technology, nanotechnology, biotechnology, using augmented reality for aviation MRO activities, and some of these latest activities. And I'll give you some idea about what are the areas where Canadian aerospace firms are active globally and also in India. These will include the airframe structural assemblies, wing structure assemblies, power conversion and distribution systems, integrated electronic controls, cockpit display systems, environmental conditioning systems, air traffic control and management systems, wind tunnel designing, communication systems, maintenance, repair and overhaul systems, parts and components for airplanes, including Avro and Dornier, state-of-the-art autopilots for UAVs, of course, the unmanned aerial systems and the counter drone systems. So all of these give you an example as to where we stand. And of course, not to forget the test cells for the engines. And we have a number of companies that are active in that area. So with the more than 20% of our domestic GDP that we spend on R&D, so this has helped our aviation industry to propel the growth in the export sector. And I just want to leave you with some thoughts that do you know that you can build an entire aircraft with parts sourced within 30-mile radius of Montreal? Entire aircraft you can build. So I just want to leave you with this thought that think aerospace, think Canada. And we are always open at the High Commission in terms of your any queries, and you want to collaborate with companies in Canada, you're looking for something, we'll be happy to provide introduction. And you of course have ICBC here as your conduit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinay. That was a very good introduction to the Canadian aerospace industry. And as you rightly said, you can build an aircraft in the Montreal area from the smallest part to the aerostructure and engine. With this, can I bring in my next panelist? Let me introduce him. He is officially called Udayan Malhotra, but popularly known as Toby. He is the CEO and Managing Director of Dynamatic Technologies Limited, based in Bangalore. Apart from his function as CEO and MD of DTL, Toby is the Chairman of National Sector Skill Council for Strategic Manufacturing and has recently been appointed Chairman of National Institute of Design and Design in Amravati and Vijayawada. He is very active with CII too. Dynamatics, for all our viewers, a very vital information I will share with you. Dynamatics Technology is global tier number 1 supplier to Airbus, Boeing, Bell Helicopters. Congratulations. Toby, let me ask you a question, and perhaps you can answer that in the next 5 minutes. From the information that I gathered through my research, I have been connected with your company through Ravish Malhotra, who's a personal friend, and the research that I have done. Your company has presence and even production units in Western Europe and the USA. Do you think it would be your vision now to access the possibilities of entering the Canadian market in the not too distant future? Can you shed some light on your company's activities and its future plan for our audience, please? Toby, it's up to you.
All right, Pulak, that's a long question, so I'll try and answer it in a short way. Firstly, Ravish, your good friend, is one of my brothers. He's a national hero, one of India's two cosmonauts, former chief test pilot of the Indian Air Force. He joined me 25 years ago when I was in my garage pursuing my hobby, which was, I was an aero model as a child. So it's quite a unique DNA in our organization. We are built by IIT, ITI and IAF. That's what our population is. Indian Air Force guys, workers from ITIs and IITians, and that's how our business runs. Now, from that garage, we started as a developmental partner with the DRDO, and we were working with drones in the early 90s with the Lakshya. We progressed to a small jet trainer with HAL as a developmental partner. And then the largest defense program in India, which is the Sukhoi 30, we build 1/6 of the airframe. So 1/6 of the entire metal structure of the aircraft is built by us. 3,500 parts per aircraft, which we then assemble. So we make 3,500 parts and then we assemble it and give it to them just in time on their line. Now, how we globalized after that was very partly karma. Airbus was looking to globalize its supply chain out of Europe around 12, 13 years ago because they wanted to get out of euro costing. Their cost was in euro, but they were competing with dollar-based Boeing, and aircraft was sold in dollars. So one of the commodities that was coming up was a very, very difficult commodity because it's a class 1 flight critical product called the flap track beam assembly, which basically you have under every wing to move the aircraft up and down. And they went and benchmarked companies across the world. They went and first did a study where to take it outside of the United Kingdom. So they went to China, Russia, Czech Republic, Indonesia, Poland, India. They came to India, they went to all the big companies, the Tatas, Mahindras, L&T, HAL, everyone. And they found that India really has great engineering, but aerospace was only in HAL. And so that was a challenge for them because they wanted something entrepreneurial with, and it's just almost happenstance that we met them. And as we discussed with them, it was like love at first sight. And very strangely, we got a massive opportunity because we became the sole supplier of the flap track beam assemblies for all variants of the single aisle aircraft, the largest selling aircraft in the world. So we had a history, and then we went with a global customer. So why is it that we operate plants in Germany? And this will lead up to your Canadian question. We operate and own plants which account for over 50% of our sales in Western Europe, in Germany and the UK, which are considered the highest cost economic centers in the world. Cost is a very relative term. They're high cost when you look at only pure labor. What we looked at was when we mapped out man, machine, method, material, money, and mind, we found that Bangalore, really, we could get great artisans, which we could train up from the villages and the ITIs. We found we could get all these IITians who could do a lot of good engineering. But when it came to money, machine, you see, when you have very complicated robotic machines, the downtime it can wreck your business. It can, because this business is very driven by delivery, quality, cost, and delivery. So we then went out and acquired businesses in Europe where the cost of capital was 2%. At that time, the cost of capital in India was 14%. It's even now it's like 10% or something. It's ridiculous. So we have robots running with highly skilled people in Europe. In Germany, we do metallurgy. In India, we do final assembly. So it's completely the opposite of the way the world works. And we've become a sole supplier for Boeing military aircraft, which is the Chinook and the P-8 submarine hunter, and for all variants of the Airbus, not just single aisle, but also long range. Now, here's the Canadian connection. The world's largest selling helicopter is also made in that 30-mile radius of Montreal, which is the Bell 407. What you'll be very interested in knowing is that the entire 407 cabin, the whole fuselage, 100% of it is now built by us near the Bangalore airport, adjacent to the Bangalore airport, in a factory that we've called the Ravish Malhotra hangar. So it's actually there, and so it's really extraordinary. We have a relationship with Canada. I'll tell you something. I find it particularly easy to operate in the United Kingdom because the laws are exactly like you have in India. It's actually British law, right? But it works better. It's that there's no, and Canada is the same. So if we were to enter, we have a small facility in Wisconsin, North America, that's for hydraulics. Okay. If we were to enter the United States with the North America with manufacturing, we'd have to look at a market, which would be America or Canada. We already have a Canadian market, which we are serving from India. If we were to actually start manufacturing there, I think it would be best for us to look at a common law country, English speaking, common law, cost of capital, same as England, aerospace heritage. I think there would be a great story for us to go further west into northern part of North America. That'd be great. But as I said, this is a business that started with humble roots in a little garage. 25 years ago, we're a global sole supplier to Airbus, Bell Helicopter, Boeing. We make tooling, so all the Dassault, Rafale toolings are made by us. A lot of the products are made by us. We make products for the Tejas, the whole light combat aircraft. The main fuselage is made by us, and as I said, 1/6 the Sukhoi. But our original Desh Bhakti was India, but the business grew beyond that. That's where we are. Thank you.
Very good, Toby. An excellent story of starting from a garage and becoming a world leader today. And we are all proud to be associated, and we can now show the world that what Indian companies can do. I would like to ask Ms. Agarwal if she has a question for Toby at this moment.
Well, I would, I like the way you want me to ask the questions. I thought the audience and the panelists would ask the questions, but I'm very happy to hear a success story which really shows the opportunities that Indian business would have in this area of aerospace, of MRO, of aviation, of the manufacturing ecosystem. But the big question that I would have for Toby, if I can take the liberty of calling him, I'm meeting him for the first time actually. The big question would be, I did hear you say that it was not so easy to find the cost structures despite having the minds, as I heard you, which were the IITians and others available in India, but there was a cost of capital which was an issue. Were there any other issues? One, and today, when the repo rate is 4.5, do you see, and we have seen capital being sourced even by the aviation sector at less than 5%. Do you now see, and that's in rupee terms, so there is no foreign exchange risk, which could be another 4.5% in case it was dollar denominated at 2% also, then you're actually sourcing capital at 6.5%. Do you now see somewhere the seeds for Indian manufacturing to take off?
Ma'am, firstly, thank you very much for the question. And it's the question, or the questions are very astute. I think you put your finger straight on the point of pain for us. Capital, so aerospace requires patient capital. So patient capital means that this business has maturity time before it is accretive to the stakeholders. And then you have a business which is a long-term business. So it's a very amazing business because it takes time, but once you have it. Now, in India, we have impatient capital. The tenures of loans are very low, and the cost of is extremely high. The cost of capital is extremely high. Now, I'll tell you, what you said is a very interesting thing. The reverse repo rate is at the lowest ever. My interest rates haven't dropped a penny. The banks haven't transmitted to the lenders. So if I was to go and make, I tell you something, this is a real pain point for real Indian technocrats and industrialists. The golden goose of India's opportunity, of the people who use their brains or use their hands, the capital is given a premium. And I think if policy makers look at, and I don't want to say only for aerospace, across the line, when we look at the banking mess we have today, the amount of NPAs we have, a lot of it is because they lent money at 15% for 5 years. So interest was 15% and repayment was 20%. So for every 100 rupees, they were repaying 35 rupees a year. How would they not go bankrupt? So I think, ma'am, that's you put it actually at the point of pain. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I joined this sector just 3 years ago. And the first question I asked my boss actually was that in 1934, the Tata Airlines came into being as Tata International. 1935, just bang next door, the Imperial Bank of India came. And, so I said, but the two never spoke to each other. I have not heard of Indian capital financing the Indian aviation sector, whichever way I look at it. So till today, everything from MRO to manufacturing to components of aircraft, engines, everything is coming from abroad and at huge cost, because most of the Indian aviation sector, and I'm sure this is true for aerospace as well, that they are exposed on to currency fluctuations in a huge way. Yours is a different story.
I'm
because
exporting.
you are an OEM
Exactly.
to Airbus, Boeing, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So you have a natural hedge, but the others don't.
Absolutely,
So,
ma'am.
this is a puzzle which has never, I've not been able to solve it. In part, yes. So we went whole hog to try and put in an aircraft leasing and financing system in India. In a year, I'm very happy to report that 2 of totally domestically produced aircraft, HAL's aircraft, we've bid them out. The total MRO is going to be done by Indians or the Indian companies. And we got 4 open bids from scheduled carriers for those 2 aircraft. And these are not the big aircraft. These are just the small 17-seater aircraft.
Dorniers.
The Dorniers.
Yeah.
So even in today's age. And then another ATR was leased out by a domestic company. So to an Indian company. So if in a year we could, with solid policy initiative coming from the government, reach somewhere, and it's a very cutthroat competition. So that's why, when I asked you my question, are you now seeing something that can be done? That was at the back of my mind. Because I've also heard Vinod say that they are the world's 3rd largest aerospace manufacturing country. We are the 3rd largest aerospace consuming market. So, but the 2 of us have not spoken to each other too much, I think. I mean, not commensurate with the demand and the supply. And demand and supply, I also feel India's demand can't always be stripped by overseas manufacturers. The more they come and participate in India, the kind of growth potential they will see. And I'm not being emotional about it, or I'm sure this would be your reading as well, as somebody who's gone from a garage to, the huge, humongous global reach that you have.
Ma'am, frankly, every Airbus is partly made by us. 100% of the Bell 407 fuselage is made by us. Every Chinook helicopter that's flying up in Ladakh right now, not for India, globally, we make major sections of that, all the P8s. So India has an amazing capability. The one weak link is this capital. It's very terrible. We have the market, we have the mind, we have manpower, we have method. The machine and capital are closely connected. There's other things. So when we put these very sophisticated robots in Germany and UK, we can guarantee from the German manufacturers that within 4 hours of a breakdown, we'll have a German engineer on site. It takes 3 weeks to get a visa to get that guy down. If you have a breakdown here, we can't run those businesses. So we have to understand these structural things. And we have all of that experience that we can share if you want to make public policy, man. Just some fast tracking in certain areas.
I'm heading the committee for manufacturing and aerospace in India now. So let's get together.
Fantastic, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very interesting talk by discussion between Toby and Madam Vandana Agarwal. It's my duty now to pleasure to introduce Ashwini Acharya, our next panelist. Ashwini Acharya is business head of CAE Simulation Training Private Limited based out of Gurgaon in NCR, Delhi. He started his career with Lufthansa and went on to SR, then to Indigo, and to the current position at CAE Simulation some years ago. He's a trained aircraft maintenance engineer. Ashwini, I would like you to give your presentation, please.
Yeah, thanks, Pulak. Thank you so much. And thanks to Nadira for setting this up. Thanks to all the panel members. Absolutely delighted to be here. I take some key words from what Toby said and what Vandana ji said. India is an amazing land. We are the third largest aviation market and developing. We have n number of opportunities, and of course we have certain bottlenecks, certain challenges, which Toby mentioned some top line of those. We at CAE, we are a JV in India. We are at Greater Noida now. We have a new center in Gurgaon. We also have a center in Bangalore. CAE is a Canadian company, is the largest manufacturer of the flight simulators, not only for civil, but for defense and for various health and medical and so many others. We are the largest, CAE is the largest civil aviation pilot training provider across the globe. We have more than 250 simulators across the globe. We have more than 50 destinations across the globe where we are present. In India, we're the largest Airbus 320 flight simulator training facility. We have about 9 simulators now, and we are adding more. We recently added a Boeing simulator, which is coming up in collaboration with Boeing in Greater Noida. We also intend to keep on adding more because, as we said, we have a provider in CAE out of Canada, which provides the highest, latest, technologically advanced tool for pilot training, and we are the emerging market. We are one of the largest market as we are expected to be. So this was an opportunity which we were able to harness, and where we are. It also brings me to a certain important segment of what we are about to discuss and this webinar is opportunities, collaboration, aerospace, MRO. I think aviation per se, of course, with the present disruption in the business, it's hugely impacted for India and as well as globally. My estimate is that India, being a more largely domestic centric driven market for the airlines, the recovery would be much faster. But having said that, it will still take some due course of time for the things to come back to where we were pre-COVID. This also brings opportunities as we stabilize and we look forward. We are able to bring in measures which are collaborative, which are cost productive. We reduce our cash burns across by various measures, what we have already taken and what we know could be done to save on the capital. The leveraging of the technology available from Canadian, as Pulak said, the whole aircraft could be done up within 30-mile radius of Montreal. And we are growing. We have 600 plus planes, and we are yet not probably at 20% of where we should be. We are going to double up these number of aircrafts in 5 to 10 years. I'm sure even post-COVID, our speed of growth would scale up very fast, and that makes it very important for us as an industry, as a stakeholders, to figure out what Toby said, the challenges which are not only for aviation, but all the industries across, capital being, of course, one of them, infrastructure is another one of them, trained manpower is another one of them. Earlier times, the trained pilot used to be a very huge critical resource, and we have seen swings there where we have shortage of pilots. But now we see that we are able to capitalize on that. We are able to bring our own in-house capabilities, at least for type training the pilots. At CAE, we do about 135,000 pilots across the globe in a year. We make about 15,000 new pilots, cadet to captain. in about a year's time across the globe. So we are going to come back on track. This probably has given us time to evaluate what all could be done at a much faster pace once we start recovering. We also have time to see and identify those areas which were somehow left unexplored. We also have to understand that we have absolute, what Toby also said, we have absolute great minds here from IITs, from IIMs, from all our education system are working on the aircraft. As being an aircraft maintenance engineer, I can proudly say that we are one of the best because we go through a very hard cycle of learning and nothing comes easy to us. So it's been I think the whole ecosystem is so ripe with expertise, with capabilities, with knowledge. We only need to harness is much better. And I'm sure we can do that once we have collaboration with the industry leaders, with the whole think tank of the policymakers, the government, the industry, everybody comes down together. I can say now when we started in 2003, we have only 2 simulators and we were operating at about 60% of that simulator utilization. Though the number of training hours requirement was still high. So a lot of business was going outside of India to Middle East, to Europe and other places. In 5 years time, we are now at 9 simulators, going to be very soon. And we are operating always at about 100% capacity. So now we are just behind the curve. Earlier, we were lagging far behind the curve. Now we are just behind the curve. And some point of time, our drive is to that we will be ahead of the curve, meaning we will have enough capacity, enough capability so that we can train all the pilots needed for the growing Indian aviation market in India. There's a little lag in the flying training organizations because of, again, number of issues there for the number of flights, the fields, the restrictions on the flying training organizations across. But once all those are addressed, and this is the time to address them, once we create that ecosystem, I think even taking one niche of pilot training would become a huge potential opportunity for us. The MRO, again, a lot of business I've seen. I had headed an MRO in about 2010 to 12 as an Interglobe General Aviation MRO. That was more general aviation, but we could see that there's a huge potential which goes outside of India, even till date. In spite of our having created, some companies have come up, Airworks, Indamar and other likes, who have created the capability. Still, a lot of business from the MROs goes outside of India for major checks, for refurbishments. Now that all could be done in India. And it's time now that we start taking this collaborative approach, bringing all that value from the outside and create something of our own, which we are fully capable. One, we are almost ready, beyond ready for that. And we are lagging behind the curve. So it's an opportunity to make that effort now, to bring the whole piece together. And then I think we would be the world's most successful success stories in the field of aviation. Pilot training, because it's now close to me, I've been into 7 years now, we are doing the pilot trainings. I see already post this lockdown, during this lockdown, of course, there was no training at all. We were shut down for about 2.5 months. But once we opened up with the due permissions from the ministry and other stakeholders, we have scaled up so very fast that I didn't even imagine that we could be there. We were expecting a growth of about 30 to 40% coming back to normal, but we are already seeing that it is almost double of itself. So we are operating at about 70%, 60 to 70% capacity utilization as on date. And if the forecast and the projections go right, probably in a month or month and a half's time, by July end or by August, of course, subject to the other conditions being, improving as far as the COVID goes, we could be looking at almost 80 to 90%, almost back to normal as far as pilot training is concerned. Now that actually is an indication that the whole industry is so geared up to revive and recover. And with the restrictions globally of travel, which I'm sure would continue for some time, if we make the right effort now, I have no doubt in my mind that we will make the best of it. And as Toby said, and Vandana Madam said, already the efforts are being identified, what needs to be done. I think we know what needs to be done. And the importance is that somebody takes the and just puts it all in order. And we're all there as an industry partners and as an active, I would say, the end user ourselves, that we are so eager to look at this opportunity to be harnessed. All right, and I think it is time now that we start looking forward and not looking backward. Looking backward, we can see that we have a lot of missed opportunities. But people like Toby and I'm sure so many other stalwarts have made use of what could be. But now it's time to look forward. Now it's time to, really speed ourselves up. On that note, I think wish you all the industry and this collaboration to take more energetic steps forward, and I'm sure something beautiful would come out of it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ashwini.
Yep, thank you.
I had thought of asking you a question at this moment, but I am deferring it to after Madam Vandana's session. And Madam, you can ask questions at that time. It's time for me to bring in our last but not the least panelist, which is eager, and we are eagerly waiting to hear you, Madam. Before you, I would like to invite Nirmal Kumar Chandramouli, Country Manager, India, Strategic and Business Development, Pratt & Whitney, Canada. Nirmal has been working with PwC for last 13 years in various capacities. Prior to that, he has around half a decade stint with HAL, the India's largest and aerospace manufacturing company, as a marketing officer. Before that, Nirmal, this is good. I come from your industry. I am an editor by profession and publisher was. So you were the other side. You come from the advertising industry. Welcome, Nirmal. You can give your presentation, after which we will have Madam to speak to us. Keep it a little brief. I'm sorry if this happens to the last panelist, of course. Thank you very much. Nirmal, over to you. Nirmal.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So thank you very much, and thank you ICBC for organizing this webinar. And good evening, Vandana ma'am, my fellow panelists, friends in India. Good morning to my friends in Canada. Honored to be part of this panel. And just as a disclaimer, I are very open. So all these opinions and views are personal and nothing to do with Pratt Canada. Right. So just to briefly describe Pratt & Whitney Canada. Right? So Pratt & Whitney is part of technologies, which includes Pratt & Whitney, Collins Aerospace, and different technologies. But from a relevant standpoint, I will stick to Pratt & Whitney Canada, which is an engine manufacturing company.
Nirmal, your voice is resonating. Your voice is resonating.
Okay, is it better? Is it good?
Yeah, somewhat better.
Okay. Okay. So
If everybody else could switch off their mics, I think then maybe the resonance would go away. Let's try that.
Okay. So just to give another perspective, to put Pratt & Whitney Canada in the context, Pratt & Whitney Canada is a 90-plus-year-old company and manufactured about more than 100,000 engines, and today 60,000 engines are flying across the world. In India, we have about 620 engines. So it's about 1% of the total engine population that we have all over the world. And again, another point is that we have about 15 different engine families, which cover regional aircraft, helicopters, business jet, general aviation, military transport aircraft, trainers, UAVs, and APUs on the narrow bodies. So that's the wide spectrum Pratt & Whitney Canada has. The Pratt & Whitney Canada journey in India started way back in early 2000s, I would say. Early 2000 is better time. With regional turboprop aircraft finding its place with some of the then airlines in India, to name a few, Jet, Air Deccan and Kingfisher. We all know the time, know how we all forecasted the market is going to explode and so on and so forth. So since then, our opportunities and collaboration goes hand in hand. If you look at it, of these 650 engines, we have 20 operators in India. So not many engine OEMs have this kind of complexity, right? So when you're talking about the my friend, the competitor, whatever, they have few engine models and few customers, but we have about 620 engines, 120 operators across India. And we move about 10 million passengers every year. So I'm not taking narrow bodies into consideration. I'm taking only the small aircraft, the helicopters, the general aviation, and then the regional turboprop aircraft, mainly the ATRs and the Q400s. So we move about 10 million passengers, mainly through the regional aircraft across India. This is on an annual basis. And then we have been associated with NAL for the last 2 decades on its prestigious SARAS aircraft program. And we know that this OEM cannot be compared with any other Western OEM. We know very well of the fact that the challenges that they face, but no, we don't see this as a typical program. We have been with them in terms of not only supplying engines, but hand-holding them in terms of the engineering support required for this program. Because we honestly see this as a stepping stone for India to invest onto some of the big aerospace programs, either alone or jointly with the other Indian aerospace companies. On the engineering services side, Pratt & Whitney Canada has close to about 700 employees working with Indian companies like Cyient and HCL and a few other companies in Canada in some of the value streams impacting operations, supply chain management, customer support, and then engineering, right? So very, very vast. We don't have a shadow concept. So these people, they are part of Pratt & Whitney Canada employees, and then they deliver huge value to Pratt & Whitney Canada. And then one of our important operator, Taj Air, has been appointed as our designated maintenance facility. Because I'm just bringing this concept because some companies call it in a different name. So this designated maintenance facility is to support business aviation operators in India, right? So, and then on the engine training side, Deccan Aviation through Flight Safety International has been conducting various type of engine courses, right from the basic engine course to line maintenance, hot section inspection, boroscopic inspections on our leading engines, PW100, PW200, and PT68 to the operators and technicians in India. And then, last but not the least, we are engaging with many Indian suppliers, for sourcing critical engine components for over 10 years. So this is only for Pratt & Whitney Canada. Apart from that, Pratt & Whitney as such is investing heavily in terms of MRO, in terms of sourcing activities, engineering services, and Collins. As you all know, they have a big manufacturing facility in India. So as the challenging times, right? So we are trying to build synergy, under the group of Aethion Technologies. I see the future is going to be much more exciting for Pratt & Whitney Canada to be able to leverage all the opportunities over here in terms of sourcing or in terms of the maintenance activities and so on and so forth. And then the last point is that we are also looking at some of those military campaigns in India, and the latest DPP 2020, Vandana Ma'am is aware of it. So we also will explore in terms of leveraging the concept of civil and military maintenance together to be able to leverage some of those benefits. So that's my quick brief on Pratt & Whitney Canada and what we wanted to do and what we are doing currently, Pulachi. To you now.
Thank you, Birbal. The last thing that you said is very good to my heart. I feel very good that you have said that you will build an MRO facility in India, though you are doing wonderfully well. So without any ado, I would like to invite Ms. Agarwal to this forum, and I am eager, everybody is. Madam, can I briefly introduce you with your permission?
No, I think no need. I think we
Okay.
will just waste time in
Okay.
doing that. So let me
Sure.
just go ahead. I'm always sorry to interrupt, Pulak, but I think we will be best served in this case. So let me say that I'm, of course, extremely happy that the Indo-Canadian Business Forum is now taking up the issue of collaboration between the Indian and Canadian aerospace companies. To my mind, the two countries have actually typified what I hinted earlier, which is that the demand is there, the supply is there, but the two are meeting in a very inequitable manner. So it's a one-way street rather than it being a two-way street, where we see how we can bring better and much larger synergies to come to play, given the size, the opportunity, and I think the interest as well. What Toby had said and the discussion we had showed that where the mind is concerned, it's there, but there are many other aspects which are crucial but are missing. What Ashwini said brought again another dilemma to mind, which is that you have the best engineers, you have the best pilots for the last century almost. I have gone to so many airlines across the world, and I'm told how many Indian engineers and pilots are there, or at least others from the field as well. All of Air India's planes used to have the MRO done locally. It is only now that some of the engines are going abroad. So you clearly had an organization which was quite capable of the AIESL, or the Air India's local engineering team, which was able to do even the engine MRO, all component MROs, etc., etc. I'm sure they were doing some outside as well, but or importing, but it was there. And yet, we are today as a country doing only 10% of our MRO. And I hope to change that shortly. We're getting a huge amount of interest in the system. When I hear Nirmal speak, and he speaks about 620 engines being served on the 600 or 650 odd planes, so which India presently has on the scheduled carrier side, but I think his planes are there on the other side, which is the non-scheduled carrier business as well. But even if we take that into account, and we have about 1,000 planes in the system, or is he also including the defense side? So then we're talking about a much smaller percentage than what would otherwise be there. But even then, it's a very huge percentage. And yet, I'm not sure that we are providing even 5 to 10% of the critical components that might be needed for manufacturing those engines in Canada or wherever else. So I continue to find in all the discussions that there is a chasm which on all these aspects has not been filled in all these years. But I also take heart from some of the recent experiences that we have had. Crisis brings out huge opportunities, and the Indian system realized when the jet operations stopped suddenly last year, and a huge chunk of our international carriage as well as the domestic carriage capacity went out of the system, how virtually seamlessly the entire system could bring back the capacity in 3 months' time, and with hardly a ripple on the pricing structure, except for a very short period of time. A lot of jugaad was done, but it was not jugaad which was of a short-term nature. That, I think, is an important lesson. The second crisis, which we're now seeing, which is the COVID crisis, I was extremely heartened to hear Ashwini say that the industry is geared up to revive post whatever crisis we are going through, and that India will come back on track. You know, this is something that we in the government have also been remarking on in all our discussions, that we are seeing a government and a business collaboration, industry collaboration taking place in India for the first time, I think, or at least in sufficient quantities now to make a difference. There may have been sporadic forays of partnership in a real sense rather than in a very contractual sense between the government and the industry, Indian industry. But I think we are now seeing both quite committed to work with each other and collaborate. That's the word that we have been using as well. And what that means is looking at all the weak links that are there, and for the stronger link actually to strengthen the next link, which is slightly weaker, so that the whole chain becomes much more stronger and it fructifies into something which is sustainable, which is scalable, and which can bring to itself what Toby is yearning for, which is patient capital. And that is something, the longer tenors that are needed is the need of the hour. And I think that while I would like to take, I shouldn't be quoted on that, to take our banking system and including our NBFCs and alternate funds and mutual funds and all forms of finance to task. You know, we started with the Banya culture, which was the usurious lending in the age-old days, and the banking system and the entire financing structures, even though they got organized. From what I'm hearing all of you say, today also, it's practically the same story. They won't give you money until the rate of interest is sufficiently high or the collateral is sufficiently interesting. Anyway, this is as a smaller aside, but I think the reality is there because proof of pudding is in the eating, and that seems to be the thing that has driven all of business away from India. India in the aviation and aerospace sector is actually encircled, where everybody has tried to produce around India, but not within India. Whether they are service suppliers, whether they are manufacturers or component people, companies abroad who are seeking to tie up with the component supply chains or part supply chains with India. But let's hope that the initiative that ICBC has taken will bring us, both Canada and India. We're looking forward to working with you. We do think that there's a huge amount of mutual benefit and mutual collaboration that is possible. And so let's find creative ways of getting there. India's aerospace is ready to leap. India's aviation is ready to leap. We have put in place an MRO tax structure, which is the best in the world. I'm told that, I know that our GST on MRO services is now just 5%, and everywhere else in the world it's at least 7%. And so I urge you all to come and subcontract in India when the GST is zero, in fact. So, you can't get better than zero. And so let's see. I was told all the time that it's tax which is an impediment. We've removed it. We've made it better than the best in the world. So whenever industry does tell us that this is a big problem, sort it out, we do try to sort it out. I'm going to tell you one story that when I heard Ashwini say that industry is geared up to revive, it's very interesting that the agriculture harvest was about to come when we did the lockdown on 25th of March. As you know, our Baisakhi is on 13th of April, and that is the peak of harvest when the farmers jump for joy. And in the lockdown conditions, and given the state of Indian farming, which is less than 0.4 hectare on average per farmland, which is hardly enough for self-sustenance, what to speak of marketable surplus. Most people told us, you'll never be able to export Indian agricultural produce because you can't export 10 rupees worth of potatoes, 10 rupees, low value potatoes, which are going to be 10 rupees per kg on a flight, where the freight rates today have jumped to 200 rupees per kg. How are you going to achieve that? We said, we'll do it. And we did it. So we sent Indian chilies, the green mirchi, to London, for instance. And you know that we go and buy green chilies at 10 rupees per kg or 5 rupees per kg. But we went to London and we sold Indian chilies. I'm just saying, this was done without a single rupee of government subsidy in it or any amount of subsidy. So we've done more than 20,000 tons of just pure fruit and veg in COVID conditions without any new money coming into the system and with better value realization for farmers. And that meant we cut out the slack, we cut out the extraneous costs, even under lockdown conditions when logistics was so high priced. It means that we can do it, and we shall. So I look forward to the ICBC working with us, partnering with us to see how we can remove the conundrum that, to me, India is, where opportunity has been humongous, but there has been insufficient, I think, last minute realization of business. I thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vandana ji. You were so articulate and so clear. I think we all just enjoyed listening to you. And as you said, it's a huge amount of opportunity which hasn't yet reached its potential. So let us all work together for this. We have shot past our time, but everybody has been so interested. We need to do a follow-up session on this itself. And we to come again because there are so many questions on the chat box, so much more that we can learn from you and how to go forward, that we will ask Pulak to please be in touch and to get us another session on this itself. I just want to reach out to Vinay Gupta. Vinay, do you have any concluding remarks that you would like to make from the Canadian side so that then I can go on and thank Pulak and all our other panelists as well.
Well, I think most of the panelists have done a wonderful job in terms of describing what is the scenario in the aerospace sector here in India, and what are the constraints that we are operating in. And Vandana ji has also very nicely summed up in terms of where the opportunities are and what we should do here in India on this. So I think we are very good on that.
Okay, thank you, Vinay. We'll need your support to go ahead on our discussions and whatever we have spoken so far. Pulak, thank you very much for moderating a fabulous, fabulous session. Anything from you, Pulak?
Let me thank all my panelists and you, ICBC, particularly for giving me this opportunity to be a moderator, though I am not a moderator myself. I am very shy, loudspeaker shy, speaker shy, and you have made out. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I would like to stay connected with ICBC. I have been part of ICBC's participation with Canadian MRO companies in the past, in 2017. So let us keep in touch and let us foster a collaboration between India and Canada, which is long due.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, that is definitely going to be our best effort. Thank you, Nirmal, for joining us. Thank you, Ashwini and Udent, Toby, for joining. Your participation and just your attending and participating today has been a big boost to us, our efforts, and we hope to get together soon. We will have more of these sessions because there are so many aspects that we have not even been able to touch or cover. So we must do this more often, and it's only through conversation. Yes, Toby. Toby, yes.
I'd like to really thank the chamber, because I've been over the last 1 month invited to speak at various such webinars. I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. This is the nicest one because it was so interactive. Normally you get just talking heads and it's, we start getting tired. This was really a very nice conversation. And I think one of the nice things also was our chief guest, Vandana ma'am. I must compliment you on your eloquence. So it was wonderful. Pulak, thank you for the moderation. And again, really thanks to the chamber. This is a I mean, believe me, I've been on, this is probably the 10th aviation thing I've done in the last 60 days. And it's by far the best because it's a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Toby. That's very motivating.
Thank you.
Once again, Ashwini, thank you. And Nirmal, thank you. Vandana ji, thank you once again. I really appreciate your...
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me. And Toby, we've got lots of work to do. So do we with Ashwini and Vinod and
Vinay.
So,
yes.
And we'll do that, madam. We will get it there. We know what to do. We'll get it there.
Yes. And we are doers. Believe me, we are doers. We are not talkers. We'll do.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Can I put in a small point here? Ms. Agarwal has been supportive of the MRO thing, and she is instrumental in getting the GST down from 18% to 5% today.
Oh.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Excellent. Excellent, Vandana ji. That really deserves an applause. Thank you very much. Everyone, thank you for listening in. Please be on, keep looking for our next session. We'll let you know as soon as we get something else together. Until then, please stay safe, keep well. Our health is the most important thing at this moment. Yeah. We are all positive that we should be able to rise above this crisis and meet them in happier circumstances.
Thank you.
Nadira, Vinay, Pallavi, thank you. Thank you
And
all.
Pallavi, yes,
you.
and thanks to Pallavi for putting it together.
Pallavi
Thank you.
and
Pallavi
Shivani.
And
Pallavi and Shivani.
Absolutely.
and Shivani.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Shivani.
Big thanks.
Good night.
Big
And Nadira, we have to stay not positive, we have to stay negative. COVID negative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't get
Thanks.
positive.
Thanks for saying that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Stay